show where you can ask me anything that you like about politics, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this is the show where you can ask all your questions about politics, and no one's going to make fun of you for not knowing things or roast you for being uninformed. This is not a show for fighting or harassing or bullying. I know that there's a lot of really popular shows out there where Republicans and Democrats just yell at each other and call each other names, but that is not what this show is. It is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. And everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. I am not going to call you a fascist so long as you don't call me a cuck. Then we're all going to be good in the hood. And maybe you're someone on the right and you've always wanted to ask left wing people why they are the way they are. Well, you got a real life lefty Democrat here that you can ask all of your questions to. And I promise I'm not going to judge you based on your questions. I understand that we are all coming from different places with different media, with different media diets. All right, Partysaurus, great to see you again. Jeff Staub says, "Who is Rene Campos?" I don't know. Do you know who Rene Campos is, Jeff Staub? All right, excellent first questions, everybody. Welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. I know there's a lot of misinformation and propaganda out there, so this is the place where we can all. Why don't you just tell me who she is, Jeff, instead of making me Google her? All right, Eric Pardo says, "Where's the best place to start for someone who knows little to nothing about politics?" I would say try to find like a good short daily news roundup podcast. I think the Associated Press has one. I listened to one called "What a Day," and I think that if you listen to that, you start picking up things like, "Oh, this is what this person's job is. That's what that agency does. This is this government rule that's keeping this from happening." Blah blah blah. Jeff, just tell me who Rene Campos is. Football and politics is, are you Democrat or Republican? I'm a Democrat. I'm a progressive Democrat. Excellent first questions, everybody. And Jeff, if you don't tell me who Rene Campos is, I'm not even going to look her up. It's the Rocketeer. Great to see you again. So, yeah, everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts. This is not a show for fighting, harassing, or bullying, or debating. I don't believe in debates. I don't believe that they are productive. Some dude says, "Do you think Trump is going to call a state of emergency before the midterms?" I think that is one potential mechanism by which he will try to lie, cheat, and steal his way to electoral victory in November. I wonder. I think that he'll probably have more success with like boots on the ground shit, like sending in the FBI and ICE. And so I don't know if declaring state of emergency might be part of that. You know, the legal memo that they are circulating right now to try to federalize voting is using IEPA, which is an emergency doctrine, resolution, law. I forget. And so yeah, that seems like it's part of their to do list. I don't know if it's going to be the only thing that he does, or when, or if he's ever going to do it. Primal Bud says, "What do you think about Lev Trotsky or socialism?" I don't know enough about Trotsky to comment. Socialism, it depends on how you define it. Like, I think that we need universal health care, but I don't know if we should make it illegal for private companies to exist. Guillermo says, "Do you think conservatives whom are gay are hypocritical to themselves?" I think that they've just been lied to about what the Republican Party is, because they will turn on you the second that you are no longer valuable to them. Like, look at people like Vivek Ramaswamy, who was running for president on the Republican ticket and now is trying to, give talks for Republican people in college campuses and shit like that, and they're calling him fucking racial slurs and they're fucking yelling him off the stage. Fucking poor JD Vance's wife is getting that shit all over fucking Twitter. So yeah, when are they gonna learn? Like, first they came for the blanks, but I was not one of them, so I did not speak up. Like, they'll come for you eventually. Luke M says, "How much influence does Israel have on American politics policies on a scale from 1 to 10?" I think it's probably like a 6. The thing is, there are political realities to why the country of Israel has leverage over American politicians. But I think the bigger issue is just money. Like, AIPAC, which is very intimately associated with the government of Israel, is an extremely well-funded organization. And so anybody who has a lot of money is going to have an outsized influence over our government. So yeah, AIPAC, Heritage Foundation, Federalist Society, like, they're all bad. All of these extremely right-wing and extremely well-funded lobbying organizations are bad and have a bad influence on America. Elvis Trump says Trump can do his executive order close to election so that no time to get to SCOTUS. I do not believe that is accurate, Elvis Trump. ICU Doodle, great to see you again, says, are you someone wrong should know? Can you rephrase? Because I don't know what that means. Alrighty, excellent first questions. What's up, Mia? Great to see you again. Partysaurus says, Trump is still trying to nationalize elections. How is he trying to push it through lately? Yeah, he's working on an executive order trying to use IEPA to federalize elections, but it's probably not going to work because the Supreme Court literally just ruled on this with his tariffs. Like, you're only allowed to use tariffs. There's no legal authority in IEPA for tariffs, and there's no legal authority for federalizing elections in IEPA. So, ergo. Mateo says, come over. No. ICU Doodle says, are you someone we should know? Weren't you here yesterday, ICU Doodle? Your name sounds really familiar to me. And I don't know. I'm a stand-up comedian. I'm not particularly famous. BB says, do you think a U.S.-Iran war soon? It appears as though the military is doing all the things that they would do to prepare to strike Iran. There's some talk within the administration about trying to get Israel to strike first, because then maybe we'll be able to sell this war better to the American people. I don't know how. I don't have a lot of faith in that, working, but I generally believe the American public is over these kind of forever regime change wars. But yeah, the thing with the Trump administration is they're psychopaths and they have the memories of a goldfish, so they could forget about this tomorrow. Like, yeah, there's no predicting it. Alrighty. Let's see here. It's the Rocketeer. You did not have to block user whole bunch of numbers. They did not say a great thing, but they did not officially cross the line yet. Mateo says, you don't understand how the military works. You will not know what they're planning. I mean, but there is some reporting that's come out about, like, the things that they have been doing, precursors leading up to it. Maybe you can turn the temperature down a little bit, Mateo. I know you're upset that I'm not coming over. Luke M says, how much of a fraud is Vance? 100. He is 1,000% a fraud. He is a massive fraud. He is his body, his soul, his heart is all built on lies. TJ Sprague says, term limits. I am for them. Midnight says, I do not like any political party in the world. They don't fit my grandiose view. Am I above politics? I don't think that political parties are supposed to match with you 100%. You're just supposed to find the one that is the closest to you, because we live in a big country, in a big world, and everybody has different political opinions, and so it's impossible for there to be a political party that matches everybody identically. It's a little conceited to think that you're not going to vote or be involved in politics until you have a politician or political party that matches your priorities exactly. So yeah, it's a little bit more like a bus. Like, a bus isn't going to pick you up from home and then drop you exactly where you need to go. You walk a little bit, and then you get a bus that gets you closer to your destination, and then you walk a little bit. All right. It's the Rocketeer says, noted it was red on my bad faith-o-meter, 100%, but there were certain things in the comment that I was like, give this guy, give him a little bit more rope for them to hang themselves with. Nas says, do you think Congress should be able to overturn a presidential pardon? I think that's not a bad idea for a way to regulate the presidential pardons, but I think it's probably better that we just get rid of the presidential pardon entirely, because it's like, what is the use case? I've seen presidents use it okay, like when Barack Obama was pardoning all those nonviolent drug offenders. But almost every president has abused it, so fucking get rid of the thing or regulate it to death. Alrighty. Jay asks, Donald Trump is goated, yes or no? No. Ecuadorian, great to see you again. Average Joe, great to see you again. And yes, my wife is 100% at the get this fucking thing out of me phase. She's been there for a while. Stephen Williams says, there you go, you said it yourself. I don't know what that means. Ban says Trump is goated. You have to ask questions, Bans, or you're going to get booted. Tamara says, for the turkeys on Thanksgiving? No, for the baby in her oven. Elvis Trump says, too much presidential power. Completely agree with that. Some dude says, why do you think they're trying to make a big deal out of the snowball fights in New York. There's a culture war thing that happens on the right where they're trying to make it seem like any inconvenience that happens to police officers means that you're un-American and you hate the cops and you should have your hands cut off. Shit like that. Okay, sorry for tomorrow. It says huge problem is the propaganda that tries to say that if you speak out against Israel, you're being anti-Semitic. Completely agree with that. Sorry for tomorrow. But here's the thing. Here's the thing is that there are some ways of talking about Israel and AIPAC that are kind of anti-Semitic coded. And so let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, we need to recognize that, yeah, criticizing the Netanyahu government is not in and of itself anti-Semitic, but sometimes people use that argument to then go to Jews secretly control the world and they are part of a cabal that drinks Christian babies' bloods, et cetera, et cetera. Alrighty. Ocean Dragon X says snowball fight, someone went to the hospital. Well, I sure hope for a speedy recovery for them. Fletch Lives Again says, what do you think about having a mechanism for public majority to remove president or Congress during the term? I think it's a good idea in theory, but elections are very expensive to run. And so I can see this being a thing that has a lot of pitfalls where every single time a Democratic president, gets in there, we got to throw a new should we keep the president kind of election thing. Maybe it can be included like in the midterm elections, like, would you want to vote on removing the president kind of a thing? Yeah, it's an interesting idea. ICU Doodle says, do you consider all politicians as insiders with insider trading? Not every politician does insider trading, but it is legal for every politician to do insider trading. And if you would like that to stop, then you should vote for the Democratic Party, because Republicans are fully in charge of the government right now. And, their bill for trying to stop politicians from insider trading is stalled because Republicans won't vote for it. Samu says, are you aware of what could happen to Italy in the next referendum? I am not. I don't know enough about Italian politics, so sorry. Some dude says, do you see a public financing of elections as a possibility? I mean, yeah, that already exists in New York. Like, why can't we have that be, federal? Why can't we have that be national? Nas says, is it anti-Semitic to say Israel have a suspiciously powerful in the USA and the West? Yeah, because I think that it's not suspicious. I think it makes perfect sense. AIPAC is extremely well funded. Israel is a valuable military location for us to be partnered with, and so they have some leverage over us in that way. So yeah, to say the word suspicious is what makes it anti-Semitic coded, though I wouldn't necessarily say that you are anti-Semitic. I'm just saying, that is part of the Venn diagram of accurate things that are potentially leading people into the world of anti-Semitism. JP says, I understand a stay of execution, but a pardon? Why do we need a presidential pardon? Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. Average Joe says, is Donald Trump goated at protecting pedophiles? Yes, I will say that. Let's see here. Samu says, it's a bit of a mess. We could start to look like Orban's Hungary. It's the first piece of the puzzle. That feels like it was the second part of a comment, but I'm pretty sure I'm agreeing with you. Utah Juggler says, is Justice Thomas too conservative even for a regular conservative? It's not just that he's too conservative. He's corrupt. Like, he has been bribed. He has legislated to allow more bribery and corruption to happen. Like, his platform is pro-corruption and pro-bribery. All right, Workstat says, where do you put yourself on the political spectrum? I call myself a progressive Democrat, which is pretty far to the left, but maybe not far enough to the left on some people. Amir says, opinion on Restore. I don't know what Restore is. Is that England rejoining the EU? I forget. Nas says, what are some of the big politicians who defend Israel because they're Judeo-Christian beliefs? I don't know, but I do know that there are definitely some centrist Democrats who continue to defend Israel. There are some Republicans who defend Israel because they believe that defending Israel is necessary to bring about the rapture. There's a bunch of different motivations for it. Amir says, it's a new extreme version of Reform UK. All right, well, I'm against all right-wing parties, so whatever they call themselves, however far to the right they are, I'm going to be voting for Labour. Again, I'm not British, so it doesn't really matter what I think about it. Woman's breast enthusiast says, do you think I could become president in a few years when I'm done with my training? Absolutely. I don't think that loving women's breasts or being enthusiastic about women's breasts is a detriment to becoming president. I can think of a couple that have liked them very much, some too many. But yeah, I don't know anything about you. I don't know if you were born in this country or if you're old enough, if you're a felon. But yeah, there are limits to who can be president. You just have to make sure that you are, that you fit the criteria. All right. Workstat says, "Are you anti-capitalist?" I'm anti-crony capitalism and I'm anti-unregulated capitalism. I do not, and Hayden Warwick, 100%. I am not so anti-capitalist that I believe that there shouldn't be such a thing as private ownership of corporations and shit like that. I'd be open to that at some point in the future if somebody made a good use case for it. But at the moment, why don't we just try having socialized medicine? Why don't we try having tax incentives for employee-owned companies? Why don't we have laws mandating that no one's allowed to have more than $1 billion? Why don't we have a law that says that the lowest paid employee needs to be represented on a board of directors? Shit like that. Kenna, great to see you again. Says, "Hey, what happened yesterday with Hillary Clinton?" So the Republican Party is dragging the Clintons into hearings about the Epstein files because it has been reported that it is likely that Bill Clinton flew on Epstein's plane a couple of times. I don't know how accurate that reporting is, but that is what people are saying. And yeah, it is basically partisan bullshit. They are both claiming no wrongdoing. They are both claiming not to have been friends with Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know what has been confirmed as far as like Bill's relationship with Epstein, but yeah, it seems like she basically went there and was like, "I have nothing to tell you. I have except to say that why aren't you calling in people that were mentioned more times in the files, like Donald Trump?" Okay, let's see here. Gilbert says, "Do you think there will be strikes on Iran tonight? I have no idea." CS says, "When's Trump going to be called to testify?" Until the midterms, it's never going to happen when Republicans are in charge. Sorry for tomorrow. So therefore, socialism is a good thing for the now. Sorry for tomorrow says, "Do I lean towards the communist side of the spectrum? Yes, but I also know that is an extreme side, so therefore socialism is a good thing for the now." I don't know if socialism is like communism light. I think they're a little bit different. Like socialism is, there's no private industry. Everything it's just one corporation that handles everything, and it's the government basically. And communism is nobody's allowed to own anything. There's not even just companies that have to be the government. It's every. I guess maybe an argument could be made then, that is the case. That's tough with two F's. Says, "Why are liberals so afraid to criticize black culture and / or Islam?" Why are liberals? I mean, I guess it's weird to think that we should be criticizing other cultures. Like I don't like what is a criticism that you feel should be made about Islam or black culture, because it just kind of feels kind of shitty to do that, like you can't really speak for a culture, I don't think, unless you're in the culture. I don't know, man. Yeah, what is something that you think liberals are afraid to say that you are willing to put here, on the live stream? What's up, John Selfridge? Good to see you. Do you think that the committee should ask Mr. Clinton if Trump blew him? That would be a good question. Flynn says, "If he was in the UK, what party would vote for?" Labour. Habitroll73 says, "Third time, do you feel Trump is trying to cause a war so he doesn't get voted out of office?" First of all, Habitroll, I'm sorry you had to ask the question 3 times, but this is kind of a lottery situation. If there's a lot of people leaving comments, I don't get to all of them. But yeah, Trump does a lot of really bad things. And those things also are distractions from the other really bad things that he's doing. So he is 100% trying to start a war, but distracting from things like Epstein and ICE and the cryptocurrency and the massive corruption and, shit like that. There's also other motivations like, a tighter relationship with Netanyahu and, making money off the military-industrial complex and, the potentially good headlines of a successful military operation, shit like that. All right, Kenna says, "Do you know about the case involving Owens?" Is that supposed to be Candace Owens? I don't know who that person is if it's not Candace Owens. Muzz King Triska, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. Daniel says Benjamin Netanyahu in all caps. That's not really a question. Rhonda Chandler says, so the pictures are not evidence? Question mark. Which pictures are you referring to, Rhonda? ICU Doodle says, I agree with you. What he is doing is a big distraction. I mean, everything is bad, and also everything is a distraction. Like, ICE is a distraction from, Venezuela. Venezuela is a distraction from the cryptocurrency. The cryptocurrency is a distraction from Iran. Iran is a distraction from the Epstein files. It's all bad, and it's all a distraction. Hayden Warwick says, in socialism, what stops the government from taking away perks when they get mad? I suppose, again, I'm not arguing for a maximalist socialist government. I'm arguing for socialist policies and communist policies instead of a communist government or socialist government. I am arguing for a mixed model like they have in Scandinavian countries, where you have a little capitalism, a little communism, a little socialism. But yeah, hypothetically, what stops the government from taking away perks when they get mad is our power to elect different people. So in a socialist government, we still would get to choose who our representatives and senators and governors and mayors are. And so if we don't like the way that, USA Corps is being run, then we get to replace the people in charge, which is a better system, honestly, than being ruled by fucking corporate oligarchs, where we have no say in Facebook's leadership or Amazon's leadership or Larry Ellison's leadership. Hayden Warwick says, but I mean, everyone's going to be on the payroll. I don't know what that means. Jeff Hardy says, thoughts on BOP? I don't know what that is. MK says, when he claims we're in a golden era, when I don't see making way more money or affording more things, yeah, I think that is politically damaging for him to do. The Board of Peace. The Board of Peace is just like everything that Trump does. It is a mechanism for corruption. It is a mechanism for him to steal more of people's money and put it directly into his pocket. It is bullshit. It is stupid. Some dude says, why do you think a lot of government rules are just gentlemen agreements? I think that in the past, it was easier to get people to not vote for people for breaking some of these gentlemen's agreements. And so it never felt like there was a necessity to actually make them illegal, where we thought, all right, the punishment for abusing the presidential pardon power is you get unelected. Shit like that. Mabadev says, the golden era for them grifting, 100% accurate. Sorry for Tomorrow says, the current Cuban power crisis is being underreported. In my opinion, completely agree with that. Rhonda Chandler says, the ones with Hillary and Bill in the red capes along with Epstein, there are several of them. I haven't seen those, but, nobody is saying, I don't believe that they're saying that they've never encountered him. I believe that they're saying that they were not friends with him and did not engage in any horrific activity with him. Annihilator says, hard question, do you think communism today should be prohibited like Nazism? Nazism is not prohibited. You can be a Nazi in America. It is a freedom of speech issue. And so, no, I do not think that communism should be prohibited. Right. Thumb Number says, they are deepfakes, LOL. I cannot comment on if they are deepfakes or not, because I have not seen them. I do know that there were some cheap fakes in there where they blurred out certain faces on pictures to make it seem like they were clandestine, but in reality, those pictures were like widely available. Okay. Right. Ford says, do you think America First is based? I do not think that America First is based. America First was originally the slogan for the American Nazi Party during World War II. So take that for whatever you feel about that. Average Joe says, calling it black culture is a racist dog whistle. I kind of agree with that. Also, criticisms of Islam are valid if held to the same standard of criticisms of the religions. If the standard is not applied equally, then it's more likely than not that you're just a closeted bigot. I definitely agree with that, Average Joe. John Selford says, Trump is splitting the zone with corruption so that we, the people, get confused about what crimes should be prosecuted first. That is 100% accurate, John Selfridge. All right. This is a guy you can block. This America First dudes. It's the Rocketeer. A little quick on the trigger finger earlier, and now asleep at the wheel. Alrighty, let's see here. That's Tough with 2F says, none of y'all have ever lived in inner city Tulsa. I've been there, but I haven't lived there. It's Rocketeer, it's fine, I was just teasing you. Jeff Hardy says, how do you feel about Democrats not standing during the State of the Union? I'm completely fine with it. The president of the United States is involved in a massive money laundering scheme. The president of the United States is selling political pardons. The president of the presidential pardons. The president of the United States is condoning his Customs and Border Patrol and ICE agents in harassing, detaining, potentially sexually violating, and murdering American citizens. So yeah, I do not believe that it was necessary for them to play his little fucking Simon Says game of stand up if you believe X, sit down if you're a shitty person, stuff like that. Cia says, how do you feel about America First Guy's mom? I mean, I did fuck his mom first in America, so I guess that's, I guess that tracks. Ooh, ready. Let's see here. What is this fight happening between Name Me Mochi and Jeff Hardy? Let's see here. What's up, Z-Guardy? Great to see you again. Alrighty. Alrighty. Yeah, alright. Looks like this fight is continuing unabated. Happy to see it. Everybody else, welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. Mick says, why they don't get Trump upside like the Clintons. The people who get to call people to testify are all Republicans right now, and Republicans are not trying to get Trump to testify because they believe it would be politically damaging for them to do so, or they would make Trump mad at them, and then Trump would send his minions to fucking burn down their houses and shit like that. All right, Samu says, protect your Constitution at all costs. I feel like you are not enraged enough about Trump. Well, if you don't think I'm enraged enough about Trump, then you haven't been watching these live streams. But I do agree that America in general needs to be madder. OBS Martin says, why are politics toxic? Because billionaires have been flooding social media and mainstream media with narratives to try to get people to fight amongst themselves instead of fighting the billionaire class and the Republican Party that is working along with them. Rory Squire says, any opinion on what's happening in the UK overall? I don't know enough about it to comment, unfortunately. Mon, thank you for encouraging people to like the live stream. Sebastian Lick says, do universal moral truths exist? I think so. You asked me this yesterday, didn't you? Because I remember telling you about moral relativism. That's tough with 2F says, why does Obama still get praised even though he was the exact same as Trump? He was not the exact same as Trump. That's tough with 2Fs. Congratulations, you have entered extremely sus territory. So you're on thin ice. That's tough with 2Fs. So let's see how this goes. Obama deported without due process all the time. That is inaccurate. That's tough with 2Fs. Obama was not encouraging ICE to deport people without due process. Obama did not have a quota for people to be deported with due process. If that happened, they were outliers as opposed to what's happening now, which is the point. Feel free to respond to that. That's tough with 2Fs. Habitral says, do you think Trump's thugs involved with Savannah Guthrie's mother's disappearance? I do. I mean, I guess it would make sense as to why the FBI doesn't seem to be making any progress with that, but I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that is accurate. Yeah, that's tough with 2Fs. Are you willing to take back your comment based on getting more information? That's tough with 2Fs. Or are you literally just here to spread misinformation? Let me know in the comments. I cannot wait. Alrighty. Sebastian Lick says, sorry, I must have left the chat before you got to my answer. Let's see here. That's tough with 2Fs. Says speed over fairness. I don't know what that means, man. Again, there's a difference between Obama and Trump. Trump tripled the budget of ICE. Stephen Miller is telling them that they have to round up a certain number of brown people every day or they're not going to get their 50K bonuses. Do you really not see the difference between LMAO? You don't even know Obama's policy. LMAO, congratulations. Now you're blocked. Okay, CS says Savannah Guthrie's mom is just another example of the 1% preferential treatment. I don't know. Sorry for tomorrow says, will we even be able to trust the integrity of the upcoming midterm elections? We will, because states run the elections. So the federal government is not going to be able to, change vote totals and shit like that. Now, there are things that we need to be vigilant about because it is true that Trump and the Republican Party are going to try to lie, cheat, and steal their way into victories in November. So we need to call our local representatives and make sure that they know that Trump and Republicans are going to try to do some shady shit. And we got to ask them, like, hey, do you guys have contingency plans for all of these various scenarios? If you live in a state where the voting machines are all electronic and they're owned by that dude who's like a big MAGA guy, then I would call my Secretary of State and be like, how can you prove to me that my vote is being counted accurately and fairly? So yeah, there is work that needs to be done, but Trump does not get to just decree that elections become federal and shit like that. Muzz King, D. Scott, Triska, Mia, Aaron Gregory, and Lynn, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. Make says, are you pro or anti-death penalty and why? I am anti the death penalty for a bunch of reasons. Number one, our justice system is not perfect. We have 100% put innocent people to death in this country. Number two, I do not believe in any kind of violence, whether it is state mandated or not. And number three, it's not a deterrent. It's supposed to be a deterrent. That's the whole fucking point of it, is you're supposed to not do certain crimes because you're worried that they're going to put you to death. But we have the data on this, and that people don't not do crimes because of the death penalty. So, yeah, it doesn't work. The justice system is flawed, and I don't believe in violence. So, D. Scott says, besides being angry, what insight do you have about Keg's Breath threatening that company for their AI? I think people just need to recognize that this is the worst version of government. This is the worst version of government, where the government is asking an AI company to be less responsible. Our government is asking an AI company to allow them to use their algorithms so that robots can fire nuclear weapons and shit like that. So think about that when you go to the polls this November, that our government is like on the side of the fucking Terminators. You know, the bad ones, not the good one in Terminator 2. You know, they're fucking, Pete Hegseth is trying to make Skynet a fucking thing. And that should be concerning to you. You know, there's some real fucking bangers in the Terminator series, by the way. We really got to think about that. Alrighty, let's see here. John Selfridge says, did you hear that the U.S. military shot down a CBP drone in Texas? I did hear about that. Guys, our government is not just evil, they're also fucking incompetent. The military just shot down a Customs and Border Patrol drone. The various agencies that are currently being mismanaged by a bunch of fucking Trump toadies aren't even fucking talking to each other. They're shooting at themselves. They're shooting at each other. It's fucking psychotic, man. Alrighty, let's see here. Make says, which U.S. president do you think was the best? Oh, I got no idea. Alrighty. D. Scott says, oh, it is. I doubt Claude would turn out like Joshua. War Games, another great reference to throw in there. Alrighty, scrolling up. Let's see here. Eyebrow emoji says, opinion on Anatolianism. I don't know what that is. Alright, let's see here. Nicodem Hop says, do you agree on abortion only in cases of incest and grape? No, I do not. I am pro-choice, so I believe in a woman's right to choose to do whatever she wants to with her body until the point of viability, at which point the doctors can remove the baby and the baby can live by on its own accord. But yeah, even if you're pro-life, you should 100% still vote for Democrats, because Democratic policies actually decrease the number of abortions that happen in this country. Republican policies don't stop abortions. They don't even decrease the number of abortions. They just make pregnancy more dangerous for women. So if you care about things like saving children's lives, then you should vote for Democrats, because there are going to be way more pregnant women whose babies survive under Democratic policies than Republican policies. If you look at all these red states that have instituted abortion bans, all of their maternal and fetal mortality rates have fucking skyrocketed. TKS Daddy says, well, we're currently carrying out war against Mexico and Cuba and selling Cuba, Venezuelan stolen oil. Yeah, that's generally accurate. Diane Reyes says, yes, teenage pregnancy lower under Democratic policies. That is accurate. Make says, do you think that the USA needs more political parties? I'm not mad at the idea of expanding not participation, but allowing other parties to participate more robustly. But I think there's a couple of things to consider. Number one, a lot of these third parties are not really taking it seriously. They're just doing these ego-driven cash grab moonshot runs for president every 4 years, fucking spoiler candidate shit. So that's number one. Green Party, you're full of shit. I'm talking to you. And number two, without ranked choice voting, we are never going. A third party is never going to be viable and not be a spoiler candidate. So if you want that, then you need to vote for the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party is open to ranked choice voting and the Republican Party is not. All right, CS says Jill Stein is just a GOP plant. I mean, there's evidence to suggest that she is a Russian plant. Triska, Mudsking, Mia, thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. And you know what that means, guys? It means it is finger hearts o'clock, the best part of the day. Gaelic Girl says, how about ranked voting? I'm down for ranked voting, and so is the Democratic Party. It's only the Republicans that are trying to make it illegal. I could even tell you the fucking number of the House resolution that it is. Okay, TKS Daddy says, Jill Stein was paid for by Russia Today, just like Ralph Nader was paid for by the Republicans 30 years ago. Was Ralph Nader paid for by the Republicans? I haven't heard any of that reporting. Sorry for tomorrow, did that one already. CS says, why did ranked choice voting fail in Colorado? That I have no idea about. All right, Ecuadorian says, do you think if a Democrat wins the presidency, they should ban ICE facilities indefinitely? Is there a need for detention facilities? Should there be a massive rush against the border, and we need to detain people as we are figuring out who is whose kid and who is seeking asylum, etc.? I could imagine a use case for that, but not the way that ICE is currently doing it. Not the way that they're preparing for like hundreds of millions of people to be detained. Not hundreds of millions, that's a little hyperbolic. Tens of millions of people to be detained. So yeah, I don't know if I would go that far, but I'm with you, generally speaking. Average Joe says, if Harambe was the moment we all got pulled into this alternative reality, is it too much to hope that Punch could be the moment we start getting pulled back into the normal reality? That's cute. And from your lips to God's ears, as they say. TKS Daddy says, when are we going to realize that 100 years ago we deported 1 million American citizens? Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure what you're referring to Project WB, right? My wife's and not ancestors, her like great grandparents or something were American citizens and regularly got deported and then had to fucking figure out how to get back to their fucking house, you know? Yeah, you are referring to Project WB. It wasn't called Project WB, but WB is a racial slur against Hispanics that I will not say. Allie Listen says, are ICE facilities trying to fill the gap for a lower prison population to make monies? I mean, do we have a lower prison population? Has that number been going down? That would be news to me. And yes, ICE facilities are trying to make money. They're already making a ton of money. You know, in addition to buying these properties at inflated costs so that, you know, Trump's buddies can get even richer off the taxpayer dollars. But they're also private prison complexes, and so they get a fee for, you know, violating people's human rights and operating these fucking torture prisons on American soil. Mick says, I live in Germany and we got apolitical parties. I think it's a better option. Do you guys have ranked choice voting? How do you make that work? I suppose you wouldn't need ranked choice voting if the infrastructure and name ID of the different political parties was a little bit more equitable as opposed to what we have here in America. CS says, prison population is going down maybe because they're sending them to El Salvador prisons, ? We're too far down a rabbit hole for that one, CS. Like, we don't even know if the population was going down. All right, the Fixer Mike says, do you follow FUBAR Pack here? I don't know what that is. Alrighty, John Abbott says, ICE facilities should be banned because ICE should be disbanded. 100% agree with that. Alrighty. Ecuadorian, are you a Yankee fan? Oh boy, oh boy. CCFC Jake says, what's your political stance? I'm a progressive Democrat. Everybody is welcome here, though, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. I do not discriminate so long as you are asking questions in good faith. TKS Daddy says, $4 billion at $165 per day per person. Just this last year, much more planned. Yes, 100% accurate. It's so stupid that we are spending so much money. We are wasting so much money to do this awful, barbaric shit that is not solving any fucking problems. It is just creating more fucking problems. It's the Rocketeer says, who is your baseball team? I'm not really a sports guy, so I don't really have teams generally. It really is like, you know, like I'm a Seahawks fan because I love fucking Marshawn Lynch and Legion of Boom, you know. Uh, and my sister lives in Seattle. Kim Buckman, Muzz King, Triska, thank you so much for helping me reach my first Finger Hearts goal of the day. I'm a Clippers fan because my dad was a Clippers fan, and we used to go see them all the time growing up. And baseball, it's like all my friends are Mets fans, and I kind of understand the Yankee hate, you know. Falling Box, great to see you again. CCF says, I live in the UK, not a single good party in the UK. Only good party is a complete wasted vote. What do you think is the only good party, CCF? Do you not think that Labour is a good party to support? CS says, what is your favorite debate strategy? To not debate at all. An interesting game. The only way to win is not to play. Austin, all right. So I'm not going to let you do that, Austin. I'm going to mute you for this live, but just don't come back and do that again, okay? Okay. Diane Raya says private equity is large scale buying single family homes, nursing homes, and healthcare captive systems. Yes, they are trying to turn us all into wage slaves, basically. CCF says Plaid, CMRU, and Labor don't like disabled people. I don't think that Labor is prejudiced against disabled people. I find that extremely hard to believe. But I don't know who Plaid CMRU is. Let's see here. Period says, should sports gambling be legal? I don't know. I would be open to it if it was better regulated and if we were putting more resources to catching people who have a problem with gambling. Like before they lose their house, before they gamble away their kids' college funds, if we can catch those people and get them the kind of treatment that they need, then I would be fine with sports gambling being legal. But it 100% needs to the system we have right now is untenable and 100% needs to change. Oliver says, do you think eating animals should be illegal? I don't know. I don't think so. I tend to lean vegan, even though I'm not 100% vegan. But yeah, I think it's a little putting the cart before the horse to say let's make not being a vegetarian or not being vegan illegal. Right. I can't wait to read your DM, Fixer Mike, and that is open to everybody. Everybody's allowed to send me DMs. DMs are open. You can email me through my website. You can hit me up on my Discord channel. Links are in the bio. I want to be a resource for you guys. So if you have any questions or things that you want to get into when I'm not live streaming, do not be shy. Use me to abuse me. Use me until you use me up. All right. CCF says they are taking away universal credit and PIP. In other words, benefits as my mom is disabled. I don't like the policy. I find it hard to believe that Labor would do that, but the Tories wouldn't. CCF. So here's the thing that I would say is people in America are very unfair to left-wing politicians. And so left-wing politicians are bad because they're both too far to the left and too far to the right. And so if you don't like Labor because they are not doing enough for the disabled community, surely there is a mechanism by which you can replace certain Labor candidates with better Labor candidates. Certainly there is a way for you to petition the Labor Party to be better towards the disabled. But I do not believe that the Tories are your answer there. Boji says, do you think there's criticisms of Trump that are exaggerated or unfair? You know, I actually do. You know, there's that whole thing about Trump supporting the Iraq War, and they pulled that clip of him on Howard Stern, and Howard was like, do you think we should have invaded Iraq? And he was like, yeah, I guess. And people use that as evidence to say that he was for the Iraq War. I didn't think that was a fair hit. I was like, he's just a fucking dude on a radio show. Like, he's not a politician. He's just fucking spitballing. And that was not an enthusiastic yes. He was just like, yeah, but I don't know, man. So yeah, I do think that some of it can be a little hyperbolic, but mostly I don't think that you can say enough mean things about Trump, considering like all the shit that he has done, all the corruption, etc., etc. CCF says Plaid Cymru is a Welsh party that cares more about Wales than anything LGBTQ inclusive and rail inclusive. So they care. Oh, you mean Wales like the country as opposed to Wales the animal. Wales the mammal. Yeah, I honestly don't know enough about UK politics to comment on any of this stuff. I just believe that you're always going to do better with left-wing parties, and so I think you should, you know, if your alternate parties are only spoiler candidates, the way that they are here in America, then I would say go all in on Labor and just try to make Labor a better party as opposed to, you know, as opposed to, letting the Tories fuck shit up again. Cymru. It's pronounced Cymru. All right, I will try my best to remember that. Boji says, do you think social media made America more politically informed or just more reactive? I do not believe that social media made Americans more politically informed. I believe they made Americans more misinformed because these platforms are all owned by billionaires and they are basically propaganda and misinformation machines. Ready. Madman says, where have all the real politicians gone? They seem to all disappear. There are plenty of great politicians that are still left. The Democratic Party's got a deep bench. I'm extremely proud of, I would say, dozens of Democratic politicians. Happy to name some if you like, Mad. Percival says, I missed a live yesterday. How'd the colonoscopy go? All clear. We are all good. And the day that I spent recovering, gardening, and watching television, mwah! Ah, Italiano, that's a very sweet thing to say. Thank you so much. Mad says, not in the UK, there isn't. I'm sure there are. People tend to be very hyperbolic about how bad left-wing parties are and how bad politicians are in general. So I would just say start digging in a little bit because it can be really easy to just kind of like accept the cultural narrative that is bouncing around. So yeah, I don't think that is Anyways, ready. Average Joe says, do you think we should be shifting some of our criticisms away from Trump and toward Republicans in Congress? Why can't we do both at the same time? Average Joe, I think it's really important to say Trump is doing this, Trump is doing this, Trump is doing this, and the Republicans in Congress are letting it happen. The Republicans were fucking standing up and hooting and hollering and fucking laughing and clapping their asses off during the State of the Union. That is a president who is stealing your fucking money and who's stealing people's fucking lives. And these fucking ghouls, either because they're on board or too fucking scared, too much of fucking wimps to stand on fucking business, we're supporting him, allowing this to go on, and showing the whole of fucking American public, we support this. This is cool. This is great. So yeah, ¿por qué no los dos? All right, so realistically, they're the ones voting to approve all this funding nonsense, refusing to bring the bills like the Epstein Act to the floor to vote, plus narcissists hate when people don't care about what they say. Oh, yeah, I'm that is one interesting argument. Like, if we don't focus on Trump, it will make him mad because he likes the attention. I'm curious about that. I'm not going to die on that mountain. Randall Tier says, which ideology do you think is better, conservative or Republican? Both are right, but what are your thoughts? I don't know what the daylight is between being a conservative and being a Republican. Randall Tier. RK says, pray with me that our eternal parasites who take tax money disappear. What do you mean that our eternal parasites who take tax money disappear? Who are you referring to exactly? Jay says, what do you think of Obama's expedited removal and speed over fairness policy? I believe that is an inaccurate description of Obama's deportation policy. Obama was trying to rein in ICE. They told him to go kick rocks. The policy of the Obama administration was not family separation or deporting and detaining anybody who is brown. That is the policy of the Trump administration, though. Ergo, the Trump administration is way, 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 way worse. Falling Box says, thoughts on Paramount CNN sale? I think that's too much influence in one group's hand. 100%. And I mean, of course, we should be voting for Democrats because Democrats break up monopolies and Republicans make giant monopoly corporation conglomerates happen. CCF, please stop posting that. Boji says, how do you distinguish between misinformation caused by ownership versus misinformation caused by human bias? There are two mechanisms that I use. Number one, avoid right-wing media because we have the data. Right-wing media is the least accurate that there is and the most biased. Number two is get your news from a variety of different sources. And that way, if you're getting some international, some centrist, some independent, some progressive, you are getting enough different perspectives that you are potentially, not being influenced by one owner of all of the various news channels. Phil says, why could voters not see that Trump wishes so awful? Trump was so awful. Misinformation and propaganda. Information bubbles. Phil, and it is exactly as frustrating to me as it is to you. Nico Dem Hope says, do you think Charlie Kirk would have one day become president if he wasn't murdered? No, I do not. I think he was a really shitty guy, and I'm desperately hoping, I desperately hope that in that universe, that people would have seen him for the con man that he was. The Honest Dad says left-wing media is just as bad. I can't stand all mainstream media. I completely disagree with that, The Honest Dad. We have the data. And there's a difference between mainstream media, left-wing media, and right-wing media. Right-wing media is, at times, only 22% accurate. And I do not believe that left-wing media or mainstream media are putting up numbers that are even close to that. I believe that they are much closer to 75, 80% accurate. CS says, how do you know so much about UK politics? I don't. CS says, left-wing media is just centrist media. Left-wing media doesn't exist. I would have agreed with you, but I think I consider progressive. I consider crooked media to be left-wing media. Ms. Jen Ryu says, why is the U.S. Overton window so far to the right? Misinformation and propaganda funded by the billionaire class. Boji says, what objective standard do you use to measure accuracy across different outlets? That is not something that I do. I allow data scientists to do that for me. If you would like me to forward you those studies, Boji, send me a DM and I will happily send it over to you. CS says, what is Crooked Media? Crooked Media is a progressive media company started by a bunch of former Obama staffers. They started with one podcast called Pod Save America. They have expanded now to where they have an entire network of podcasts, and they've published books, and they do a bunch of pro-voting work. They have an organization called Vote Save America that recruits people to volunteer for organizations. They sift through polling data to show you where is the most valuable place for you to put your dollars if you want to contribute to political campaigns. Which are the most important elections that we need to be focused on. I cannot say enough nice things about Crooked Media. I think that they are a truly excellent organization that 100% makes mistakes, but they have their hearts in the right place and they do so much good, and they are trying to be a force of so much good and change in the country and in the governments that I cannot recommend them highly enough. Thomas says, what do you think about Trump putting his name on everything? He's a narcissist, sociopath. He's a fucking baby. He's a fucking child. So 100% that should be disqualifying. Oh, right. CS says, sorry, I meant any TV, network media, not podcasts. There's left-wing podcasts for sure. I don't really watch TV news, so I can't tell you if that is an accurate statement or not. Boji says, what's something most Americans believe about U.S. politics that is actually false? Excellent question, Boji. There's a bunch of these things. Democrats could have codified Roe anytime they want. That is false. Generally speaking, America believes that the Democratic Party is worse than it actually is. Democrats never get any credit. Republicans never get any blame. We cannot raise the bar high enough for Democrats, and we cannot lower it enough for Republicans. Ali says, did you watch the State of the Union? No, I did not. I do. I don't have a torture fetish. Ali BUX says, what do you make of Ireland having 17,000 people in emergency accommodation? It's awful. I don't know anything about that. I desperately hope that Ireland is able to take care of its citizens. Thomas says, I think you should put his name on porta potties. I think inside where you poop is where his name should be. Percival says, we have a constitutional republic, not democracy. Is my face one? I think I understand what you're saying there, Percival. And yeah, I generally agree with that. Nicodem Hop says, who do you think was the greatest president of all time? I have no idea. I'm not really a scholar in that way. D says, are the eternal parasites corporations? I don't think that's what he was saying, but that is how I feel about it. Ms. Jen Ryu says, what do you think there's a way out for the joint West? Is this banned in U.S. billionaire era? I'm not really sure what that question means. But yeah, there is a way out. There's always a way out. CS says, do you believe Trump will send soldiers into Mexico to fight cartels? I don't know. I hope not. It would be a really bad idea. Jamie Molly says, why is there an increase of Democrats moving to red states? Because we are currently living in a cost of living crisis, Jamie Molly. And what happens when people can't afford to live because things have gotten so expensive because of hyper-monopolization and Republican-caused inflation is that people have to make sacrifices just to make ends meet. And moving back in with their parents, moving to places where the cost of living is cheaper because nobody technically wants to live there, and because there is a more regressive tax structure, meaning that you get fewer things. You get fewer protections, and the outcomes in healthcare and education are worse. That's just what happens. It's a fucking bummer. All right, Boji says, if voters saw each party more realistically, how do you think it would change American politics? I do not believe that Republicans would ever have control of government. I think there would still be pockets. There would still be like a handful of Republican senators and Republican House members, but I do not believe they would ever have the majority, and I do not think that they would ever have the presidency. CS says, moving into red states is also multifaceted. We also have remote working now. Yeah, it's possible that people are like, yeah, I can live cheaper and make a lot more money that way. All right. Okay. Average Joe, I'm never not going to think that doo-doo thing is funny. Says, would you rather never be able to look up or never be able to turn left? Not answering that. John Abbott says, one study during the Obama years showed that people who get their news from Fox News actually knew less about current events than people who watch no news media at all, because those who watch no media could at least guess the correct answer often enough to be right more frequently than Fox viewers. I know exactly what study you're talking about, John Abbott, and that is 100% accurate. All right, Falling Box says, you seen the 22-point bill that the guy Jack Ferguson says 80% of the people agree on? I believe you are referring to the SAVE Act. Is that right, Falling Box? Let me know. Ali Bweck says, what's the story with Trump releasing files related to UFOs and ETs? He's trying to distract. I'll believe it when I see it. And he's trying to one-up Obama, who went on a podcast recently and said that he believes that aliens are real, which some people took to mean that Obama had evidence that aliens were real, and that's not what he said. Alrighty, Dream Knight says, how come Poland became such a great country? I don't know anything about Poland, unfortunately. Boji says, do you think the two-party system forces voters into extremes, even if most are moderates? I do not believe that is the case. I think that is more a consequence of billionaire-funded propaganda and social media algorithms. Right, Average Joe says, funny enough, I believe that people who watch The Daily Show were also more informed. I believe that is accurate, and I don't know if that was in the study or not, but I believe that's accurate. Falling Box says, no, not the SAVE Act. This is a citizen-proposed bill. Yeah, I have no idea what that is, Falling Box. Percival says, all I know about Poland is they're arming up like they're Texas. I mean, if they're on the border with Russia, there are worse things they could be doing with their time. Ollie Bweck says, is Trump a PDF? I don't know, but there is a lot of evidence to suggest that might be the case. Like a lot of inappropriate comments that he's made about his daughter when she was younger, a lot of time spent with Jeffrey Epstein, etc., etc. 24 Garrett Gold, love that name, says, do you think any of the elitist criminals associated with Epstein will ever be charged? Yes, if they are also Trump's enemies, in which case it might happen during the Trump administration. But if not, we would need to have Democrats in charge, in which case everybody who's in those files who can be charged will be. JB Malloy says, I think Gavin Newsom will lose. Are you referring to the primary or the general, Jamie? Boji says, would you say Americans vote more based on ideology or on short-term incentives like the economy? I think it's a combination of ideology and vibes. So a lot of people did not vote in 2024 because of vibes and not because of accurate information. Ollie says, would Trump have had to run in 2020 primaries even though he was already president? If anybody decided to run against him, then yes. And in fact, I do believe that 2 people ran against him, but they didn't have enough support to get listed on the ballots in 2020. So yeah. Yeah, there's always a primary if there's a challenger. It is up to the president to decide whether or not they want to engage in debates or not. But those challengers do still need to meet certain thresholds in order to get on the ballot. Oh, right. Jamie Molly says, general, since center is not respected. I think that it is I think nobody knows what will happen if Gavin Newsom wins the Democratic primary. You are allowed to think that he will lose the general. I personally don't think that he would lose general election. He's very electable and handsome and well-spoken. There are certain things in his record that I think could be a detriment, but that's true for probably any Democratic candidate, because the right will they'll make mountains out of molehills, or they will just fucking make up shit whole cloth. So yeah, I think it's a little hyperbolic to say that you think. I mean, you just said you think. So, it's the people that say he will not definitively. Those are the ones that I get annoyed with. Right, Short says, how would you feel about Trump if he was necessary for making Democrats progressive? I do not believe that the ends justify the means there. I believe that we could have made Democrats more progressive without Trump and without good people dying and having their lives ruined by Trump and Republican policies. David Douglas says he dated a teenager when he was in his 30s. Can we step away from men like this? Are you talking about Trump, David Douglas? Because I did not know that he dated a teenager when he was in his 30s. Benzin says, what do you think about the war in Ukraine? Do you support Ukraine? Yes, I do. David Douglas says Newsom. Oh, Newsom dated a teenager when he was in his 30s. Oy, oy, oy. Was it? I'm hoping it was illegal. It was legal at least, Ooh, righty. Average Joe says, don't forget to vote. Today is the last day for early primary voting here in Texas. All right. May your Sox never lose their match. That's pretty cute. Okay, let's get back into these comments. Brady says, do you think the extreme left pushes people in the middle towards the right? I don't think so. I know that is a narrative that a lot of people believe in, and I'm sure we can find examples of that happening, but I don't believe that largely is the case. Boji says, do you think Charlie Kirk shifts the Republican base in measurable ways, or mostly the youth? I think mainly it was getting the youth on board the right wing, as opposed to actually changing the philosophy of the party. Like notably, there were disagreements between Charlie Kirk and like Nick Fuentes and the Groypers and the MAGA movement in general. Kim Buckman, D. Scott, Muzz King, Triska, thank you so much for reach my second Finger Hearts goal of the day. And we're going to be wrapping up soon, so we are going to do High Bears at the end because they are my favorites. Benzin says, how do you think the war will end? My guess is it's not going to end until Putin is gone. All right, Boji, already did that one. Poppy says, how you unify politically, more left or right. I am left-wing. I am a progressive Democrat, but everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here, for all of your questions, your comments, your likes, your shares, and your gifts. I appreciate all of the support that you guys give me, whether it is the free kind or the share kind. Phil says Kirk got a lot of young white males to vote Republican. I believe. I think that is 100% accurate, Phil. I believe that all of the data supports that. And if you want to support the show financially, you can, but you do not have to. I know that we are all struggling because of stupid fucking decisions that Trump and Republicans have made. But if you have the means and you have the desire, the mechanisms are there for you. So I have a Patreon that you can join for as little as $1 a month. You can send gifts on TikTok. You can send bits and emotes on Twitch. And if you are watching on Twitch and you see the new emotes that I put up, I would really like to see your feedback on that, if you are even seeing them or not. You can also become a super fan on TikTok, and if we get enough of those, maybe we'll do fun little super fan only live streams. You can also, and you become a subscriber on Twitch. And if you are a subscriber, if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to my Twitch channel for free, costs you $0, helps me out a ton. And lastly, just shout out to my regular financial contributors, Robert, Shannon, Carmine, Patrick, the two Seans, Melissa, Dan Blackbird, Cliff, Triska Muzz King, and It's the Rocketeer. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. If you ever want to get in touch with me, get in touch with me. Don't be shy about it. You can send me one message or 1,000. I don't give a fuck, man. I want to be a resource for you guys to be more informed and more involved in politics. So if I can do that for you, use me and abuse me. Use me until you use me up. The DMs are open. You can email me through my website, and you can also hit me up on my Discord channel. The Discord is great also because there's recommendations there for books and podcasts and great organizations that desperately need your help. And lastly, just my heartfelt plea that you guys all do the work, because unless we do the work, we are fucked. The Democratic Party does not have the power or resources to solve this for us, so we have to do the work ourselves. User, a whole bunch of members, says, how do you get liberal ideas through without leaving people behind culturally? I do not believe that liberal ideals culturally leave people behind in general. I do believe that some people translate liberal ideas to purposefully leave people behind culturally in order to create the narrative that Democrats don't give a shit about you. They only care about they, them, stuff like that. But if you disagree with that, let me know. I'm happy to engage on more specifics if you have them. Phil, I'm glad you found me too. Falling Boxes, are you involved in your community at a local level? What's the best way you found to get involved? I do a little. I have mostly been focused on larger outreach projects. I will do door knocking. That is probably the most local that I get. But I've worked with Swing Left. I've worked with Run for Something, and I do these live streams to try to cast as big a net as I can. But I definitely don't do the thing that everybody says that you should do, which is get more involved in local politics. I don't know. I just kind of feel like that would be the thing too much for me. Like that would be one too many things for my plate. And that is one of the areas where I am ashamed to say that I preach but do not practice. I highly encourage everybody to get involved in local politics. But yeah, I should just so that I'm not a fucking hypocrite up here, you know. All right, Not So Slim Shady says, how was your day, man? Pretty good so far. Happy that it's Friday. CS says, can you give an example of liberals leaving cultural behind? I would love to hear that as well, CS. Boji says, what policy changes could reduce conflicts between federal immigration officers and their communities? The policies exist already, Boji. It's just that ICE and CPB are breaking the law. They are breaking the law. They are doing illegal things. So we don't need new rules. We just need the people in charge to actually enforce the rules that are already on the books. All right, user a bunch of numbers says, well, I live in a small town and lean liberal, but I cannot get through on trans issues, and they are too far behind. Okay, well, so let's see here. I think that there is a way to talk about trans issues that makes it seem like the left is really extreme about it and is trying to convince children who are not trans to be trans. I think the way you talk about this issue, though, is you talk about children's safety and you talk about things like representation. And so I would say something to the effect of like, listen, I'm not attracted to guys, but there are guys who are attracted to guys, and I think they should have the right to do that. And then see if they agree with that. And then go, okay, so you believe then that gay people exist and also that they should have a right to do that thing. That's exactly how I feel about trans people. Like, I am not a trans person, but people tell me that they're trans and I believe them. There seem to be, like 1% of the population is trans or something, so a significant number of them out there. What harm is it doing to allow them to just live their fucking lives, And where the children's safety thing is concerned is where the argument happens around whether or not people who are under the age of 18 should be able to receive gender-affirming care. And where that issue is concerned, I go, well, if you talk to people who do this professionally, they will tell you that there is significantly less self-harm amongst children who are allowed to explore this part of themselves. And so if you want there to be less psychological torment and potential physical self-harm and potential unaliving that is happening there, then you should support children being able to get that kind of care. Let me know what you think about that. User a whole bunch of numbers. Let me know. Falling Box says, I don't get as involved locally as I should either. I get it. Yeah, Falling Box, send me a DM and maybe we can make this our little project that we do together. And then we can say, like, I tried this. I went to my community meeting. To be fair, I did do a little bit of this when I lived in New York. But I live in LA now, and I have not done any of it. Boji says, who watches the enforcers to make sure the law is followed? Normally, there are these things called inspectors general, which are the people who look at what the government is doing to make sure that they are following the law. The Trump administration and Doge fired all of them, pretty much. I'm confident that it's all of them. There may be a handful still sticking around. But it was part of the project of Doge and Elon Musk and Donald Trump to get rid of people who could stop them from doing the illegal shit that they want to do. Alrighty, Youper, thank you so much for hyping up the No Kings protest on March 28th. I will be there. CS says, notice how the politicians concerned about trans issues are the ones who should be kept away from kids. 100%. If I had a nickel for every right-wing politician who was going hard against the trans community because they wanted to quote-unquote protect the children, and then those people were eventually arrested for having child pornographic material, I would be a rich fucking guy. Alrighty. Falling Box says, I don't think kids should receive it without their parents' consent. I can see one issue with that, and that is if the parents are bigoted and not supportive. And yeah, I generally believe that. I think that there have been some reports about doctors and other people being too aggressive at shoving kids through gender-affirming care. So I can't say that it 100% doesn't happen, but I can tell you that that is not the policy of the people who take this issue seriously, that it is a slow and cautious and safe process. Slow and cautious and safe process that these children are brought through gender-affirming care. Boji says, are there alternative oversight bodies that could monitor ICE operations effectively? I don't know if they exist at the moment, but I'm sure that, but it's definitely possible that that is a thing that could happen. CS says, kids don't get gender-affirming care without parental consent. Can you show me one example? I don't have one off the top of my head. I went back and forth with this on this issue with a buddy of mine because he was saying that this is happening all the time, and I said it wasn't happening at all. And then he showed me an article about somebody in the UK doing that, and I was like, well, obviously that's wrong. Nobody supports that, but I can't say it doesn't happen. I can only say that it is not the norm, and that is not the policy of people on the left. That is what, again, should happen. All right, everybody, I'm gonna get out of here. Do the work. Be good to yourself. Be good to each other. You don't have to be a dick to do the work. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. Refresh your noodles so that you can get back to work on Monday or whatever. Is there anything over on the Twitch and YouTube that I want to get to? Let me just see here. Ecuadorian Equito says, since MAGA is allowed to call us immigrant aliens, is it fair if we start calling MAGA crackheads? I don't believe in that, but I can't tell you. I can't stop you from doing it. JP says, it is also not possible to sue the federal government for most things they can do wrong, including things like wrongful death. I believe that is accurate, and that is a substantive policy change that we should 100% put into effect. And Ecuadorian says, I'm just curious, would that be a fair take? Again, I can't stop you, but it's not what I preach. All right, everybody, I will see you guys on Monday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great weekend. Do the work. Be good to yourselves. I'll see you guys later. Take care. Bye-bye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye.